Okay, John. Good evening. My name is Tracy Craig, and this is Alameda County Environmental Health Department's community meeting for the 5901 College Avenue site. I will be moderating tonight's meeting. We have one attendee, and we'll get started right now, but we will also be posting this video online if people want to watch it later. So first of all, thank you for attending. The one person that's in attendance, we have a short presentation and that will be followed by questions and answers. This is our agenda. Again, this is a webinar, which means that attendees do not have audio or visual feed. But when it comes time for the question and answer portion, we can unmute you and you'll be promoted to a panelist, so we'll be able to see you. And then also you can also ask a question anytime during the presentation by using the question and answer box. So here's our agenda for tonight, very short. The purpose of the meeting is really just to discuss site conditions, review the soil management plan, which is how soil will be managed during construction of the property, what community protection measures will be in place so that the work can be conducted safely in a manner that doesn't impact on-site workers or residents, and then accept any public questions or feedback. You can see we have our bulleted items are the agenda, and our presentation is probably about 15 or 20 minutes long. Next slide, John. Okay, so I'd like to take a moment to introduce everybody. First of all, I'm Tracy Craig, moderating the meeting. With me is John Permani, and John is running the slideshow. Also with me is from Alameda County Environmental Health Department is Dylan Rowe. Dylan is the chief, so she is the person in charge, and she'll be giving most of the presentation tonight. City of Oakland also has a role. They issue permits and oversee site redevelopment work. We do not have a representative of the city on this evening. And then the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, also just called the Air District, responds to any kind of complaints about air quality or odors. We have more on that later. You can also call me for a quicker resolution if you have any problems. Next slide, John. And then this is really just our owner and consultant team. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Melissa Chapman, and she is the CEO of the Jewish Community Center of the East Bay. Melissa, can you raise your hand? Hold on, let me see. There you go. Okay. And then also we have Moses Lubitsky, and Moses is a board member with the East Bay Jewish Community Center. And then we also have representatives from the development team, equity community builders, a couple environmental consultants, because remember, we'll be discussing environmental issues tonight. And so that's P&D Environmental and Geokinetics. And finally, John and I are on just moderating the meeting and handling the logistics. Something important to note, this meeting really tonight is to discuss the proposed soil management plan. This isn't about the development, which my understanding is has been entitled. This is really just to talk about how we'll be managing any kind of residual contamination so the project can proceed safely. Okay, next slide. I think everybody knows where this site is. It's in the Rock Ridge neighborhood bordered by College, Chabot, and Claremont Avenue. And now I'm going to hand this over to Dylan Rowe. Again, Dylan is the chief of Alameda County Environmental Health. Dylan? Oops, you're muted. It happens to all of us.
I muted myself so I wouldn't make noise while you were talking. So good evening, everybody. We have a lot of stuff to go over, so I'm going to kind of go over it fast. And then if there are any questions at the end, we can discuss them. So we have entered in, Alameda County Department of Environmental Health has entered into a voluntary remedial action agreement with the East Bay Jewish Community Campus to investigate soil that's going to be disturbed during the construction process, and identify any kind of protocols that will take place to make sure that during the the construction that the adjacent community will not be impacted, and that occupants, new future occupants of the center will be protected. So this is a site that has, I think, 10 parcels, a lot of land use, and including auto repair and some laundry facilities and residential and the old Dryer's ice cream. And so as part of that use, there has been hazardous material storage. In 1989/90, tanks were removed associated with the former Dryer's facility, and those tanks were used for fueling trucks, and also there were some waste oil tanks that were historically on the site, I believe associated with auto repair. The tanks were the buildings were demolished, and current buildings constructed following tank removal. Oh, so I am mistaken there. So these are the tanks that were under. They're all there. So these were tanks that were removed to facilitate construction of the current building, which is the Dryer's building. And 2 of the tanks were located underneath the current building. And you can see, John, you want to point down to that corner service station, that yellow corner down there? Yep, 2 of the tanks were, I believe, located down there. And then 2 of the tanks were in what is now the parking lot. There was a release from the tanks. So there is a historical leaking underground storage tank case that was overseen by my agency. And it was closed in 2022 under the criteria of the State Water Resources Control Board's low threat underground storage tank policy. Since that time, City of Oakland has approved plans to redevelop the site into a community center with an outdoor play area. And so to facilitate that, there's going to be some soil disturbance and demolition of shallow foundations and hardscape to create some new spaces. And so Alameda County Environmental Health will be overseeing and making sure that during that demolition and soil disturbance that protocols are followed to protect everybody from some residual contamination that is at the site in soil. So next slide. So there have been a lot of investigations at this site. Most recently, the investigations have focused on the shallow soil, just to understand what we would be encountering during site redevelopment. And there is also some soil vapor impacts. So there has been some investigation about the soil vapor impacts, and that is about chemicals that potentially can make their way into buildings. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. The majority of the chemicals that we're going to be discussing tonight are metals and pesticides that are in shallow soil. And they are likely, a lot of the shallow soil impacts are associated with historic fill material that was brought to the site probably when the site was developed as the Dryer's ice cream site. And that fill material is anywhere up to 2 to 3 feet thick across parts of the site, and it does have some chemicals of concern in it. But what's important to know is that all the chemicals that you'll see as we go along, a lot of samples have been collected at the site, and all of the samples are below commercial screening levels, and these are risk-based levels promulgated by different agencies in the state. But there are some areas that are above protection levels for workers. So we have a plan that we have worked out with the Jewish Community Center or campus to make sure that workers are protected during excavation of some of that material, and we'll go through that as we go through the slide. Next page. So I talked about a lot of samples. There have been a lot of samples. This is the site. Each one of these locations shows either a groundwater sample or a soil vapor sample or a soil sample. So the site has been really well characterized. Next slide, please. This is a slide that you can't really see, but it is available if you want to look at this on the in the case files on a website called GeoTracker, and Tracy will talk about that at the end of the slide. But this basically shows samples that have been collected in soil recently, within what we call the construction zone. So within the zone where work will be done during the redevelopment activities. And it's hard to read, but there are some concentrations of, basically it's showing concentrations of lead and some PAHs, or polyaromatic cyclic hydrocarbons, and some metals. But again, most all of them, except in some focused areas, they're below commercial levels, again above construction levels, and there will be extra precautions taken during that when that material is disturbed. Next slide, please. There's also vapor, so soil vapor, which is vapor that it's basically gas that's in soil between particles of soil in the subsurface. And there are some fairly low concentrations of what are called chlorinated volatile organic compounds, chloroform and tetrachloroethylene mostly. There's a little bit there's also some petroleum hydrocarbon in soil vapor. We've done a lot of investigation to figure out if there's any source areas that need to be remediated to address these, and we have not identified any source areas, and we believe that it is basically kind of a low-level cloud under portions of the site that's associated with the former auto repair. So to address that, the East Bay Jewish Community campus will be installing some vapor mitigation systems in some buildings. It's currently under development, and some more additional data collection is going to occur so that we can refine that. But the mitigation systems are conservative measures. The screening levels for vapor intrusion are extremely conservative. And so out of an abundance of caution, the Jewish Community Center is making sure that people that use their site will be protected. Next slide. So this is the main thing, that if you live around here or you have a business around here, this is when the soil disturbing activities will happen. It's going to happen in 5 phases. This slide shows the 5 phases. The 2 phases where there are some chemicals in soil that are above the construction worker levels are in phase 1 and phase 3. Where that soil will be disturbed. And so we'll talk a little bit about what's going to go on in those areas. The other areas, phase 4 and phase 2, I believe, phase 4 and 5 are really parking lot resurfacing and restoration. But all of these areas, there's a limited amount of asphalt removal or concrete removal, and construction of decks, play areas, other areas that don't require deep excavations. Next slide. So to address the chemicals in soil, since there is not a source of contamination that we have identified that needs to be remediated to reduce groundwater contamination or reduce soil vapor concentrations, soil will be addressed during construction and demolition. And so there is a soil management plan. It also is in the case file, and it provides protocols for construction workers on how to manage soil, and has very specific practices about storage and disposal, community protection measures, and contingency measures. So we'll talk about that as we go along here. Next slide. A lot of it focuses on dust. Dust is how anybody in the vicinity, anybody in the community could be potentially exposed to any of the contamination. And so that would be through dust or stormwater. The goal is to control dust and stormwater. And so there are standard practices for dust that the Bay Area Air Quality Management District requires all construction sites implement. And if you implement these protocols for dust, even if you get a trigger or your dust exceeds a certain threshold that says you need to kind of pause for a second and reevaluate, just kind of regroup and make sure your dust control is in place, those trigger levels would not have contaminants of concern at a concentration that would be of human health risk to the community. That trigger level is about PM10, so dust particles. So there are a lot of protocols in place for that. There are a lot of things here. You'll see if you're paying attention, there's going to be spraying of water on soil during excavation and loading onto trucks, covering damp soil or placing it in bins until it can be sampled and removed from the site. So I think I'll back up before I say that. Those two areas where I talked about, areas 1 and 3, where there is soil that's above the construction worker screening levels, those areas will be excavated. The areas where construction will occur, they will be excavated and taken off site to a landfill. They will not be put back on the site. And so while it's being excavated, they're either going to be direct loaded, the soil is going to be direct loaded into a truck, or it will be placed in a covered bin that when there's enough of that soil, it will then be put and taken off site. So the rest of the construction soil exposure is not going to have any potential contaminants of concern. And so that soil will not be managed by putting it in bins or hauled off the site. So you'll see covering of trucks, cleaning of wheels. There will be big rumble strips. You can see one of those down in the corner of that slide to make sure that dirt is knocked off of the tires before the truck leaves. Sweeping of the adjacent streets. There will be signs on the fencing that have numbers to contact. And Tracy, are you going to be on that? Yeah. So
Yes, I am.
okay. So if you have, and she'll talk about this a little bit later, but so everybody knows that I take dust complaints really seriously on any kind of excavation site where there is some contamination. And so I have full confidence in this team. I have full confidence in the East Bay Jewish Community Center. We've worked a lot together to come up with a plan and have protocols. But that being said, stuff happens. And if stuff happens and you have a concern, call Tracy and Tracy will call me. And we will make sure that we make corrective actions to make sure that everything goes along the way it should. There's other contingency measures in case they find something. It's possible. This is an old site. I don't think they're going to be digging deep enough, but it is possible. You can find an old tank or an old barrel or something. And if they do, there are protocols in place about how we deal with that. So next slide. Associated with dust monitoring and or dust control is some community protection air monitoring. So during the first 3 days of the work that's conducted in those two areas, phase 1 and 3, where there is soil with contaminants of concern greater than construction worker exposure or risk levels, there will be baseline monitoring that's done on the perimeter of the site. We'll show you a figure in a minute where those locations are. And basically it's going to, they are real-time monitoring. They run all the time. And it's really to just verify that the contractors are proceeding in accordance with the plan. And if they do it well for 3 days, then we expect them to continue to do it well again. If there is anything that kind of gets out of control, there are protocols in place to correct those. So next slide. This is what an air monitor looks like. It's a little machine, and it's basically just what it is doing is it's monitoring dust. It's not monitoring chemicals of concern. It's monitoring dust. So The trigger level for dust with a Bay Area Air Quality Management District is 50 micrograms per cubic meter. If there's a trigger, protocols are checked, make sure everything's being done correctly. Even if there is a trigger in exceedance of 50 micrograms per cubic meter, the concentrations of chemicals of concern in that dust would be extremely low. And that's all supported by calculations based on the maximum concentrations that have been determined at the site. Next slide. So here is where the air monitors will be. They're color coded depending on the phase. So when the phase of work is being done, the air monitoring locations will be in different places. I do have a question. I'm going to ask you, Paul, on this. I thought we were only doing air monitoring during phase 1 and 3, but it looks like we're doing air monitoring during all phases.
Dylan, you are correct that we are presently scheduled to only do air monitoring during phase 1 and phase 3.
Okay.
However, we've provided this information so that people can know if for some reason a condition is encountered that was unknown and
Yeah.
air monitoring becomes necessary during that other phase of the project, the
Yep.
community can know that these are where we will have the perimeter air monitoring locations.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Okay. So lots of protection while this site is being redeveloped. Next slide. This is the kind of trucks you'll see. I won't kid you. You'll see trucks, but that's part of redevelopment in Oakland. You see 1 to 2 trucks will enter and exit the site on any given day during the soil removal periods. The trucks will not be permitted to line up on residential streets or travel on Chabot Road or idle for more than 5 minutes. And the trucks will follow City of Oakland approved truck routes. Next slide. And there it is. There is the City of Oakland approved truck route, which looks like it'll go down till it gets to Ashby and then go up to 580 or I-24. Next slide. So work will occur. Am I still doing this, Tracy, or are you doing it?
I can take
Okay.
over.
All
Okay.
right.
So just wanted to quickly introduce Paul King. He's with T&D Environmental, and he is an environmental consultant. He's the one that answered the question about the air monitoring locations. So what can you expect? Work will occur Monday through Friday, 7 in the morning till 7 p.m., although I believe that noisy work won't start till about 8 o'clock. This is heavy construction work, so you'll see yellow iron out there, and that would be what you see in this picture. So you can expect some noise and vibrations, but there'll be measures to minimize impacts in addition to air monitoring and monitoring trucks. We'll have noise screens up to buffer the noise. We'll be phasing the work, as you know, into 5 different phases so that we have better control. Work that may cause odors won't be conducted in the middle of the day or the afternoon, so it won't bother people's days. And then the truck route has been designed to avoid nearby schools. Okay, and if you have a problem and any kind of problem at all, it's noisy, you smell an odor, and I just want to be clear, there might be some what we call nuisance odors, so fleeting odors that are related to old petroleum products that have been in the ground for a long time. You are always welcome to call me. My cell phone is there at the bottom, 510-334-4866. I really do answer it. You can text me, I text back, and I'm very responsive. So my job is really to make sure that if there's a community complaint, that we address it in a timely fashion. I'll call Dylan directly, or I'll call Paul or Suzanne or any of the team, and we'll figure out what's going on, and then I'll call you back with a resolution. So if there's an emergency, you can call 911. If you want to call the air district, you can call the air district, but the air district is very slow at responding. I've worked with them for years. So I'm probably your fastest point of contact. I would encourage you to take a picture of this slide. My name will also be posted on the fence along with my phone number. And this is our soil removal schedule. So as you can see, I think this project is just shy of a year, and the different phases are shown here. that we'll be doing and the length of time. And I'm not going to read this to anybody, but I do want to note that the soil removal work will occur intermittently with all of these different phases. So there's some type of soil removal going on with all of these, and that is the work that Alameda County Environmental Health is overseeing. And of course, the schedule is tentative, subject to change with rains or anything else. And then this is just our schedule for the project to move forward under the purview of Alameda County Environmental Health. We're having our public meeting tonight. Dylan will be looking at the comments and incorporating those that she sees fit into the soil management plan. We assume that that soil management plan will be approved in late February, and then construction work will start in March. And it will continue, as I said, just about a year, so through February. And then that soil disturbing work will happen on and off during the actual construction work. And of course, communications will be ongoing. And I think our next slide discusses that. And yes, it does. So if you have comments, you can comment tonight. You can comment in the question and answer box, or we have 3 attendees, so you can raise your hand and I'll call on you and I'll promote you to a panelist. And we'd love to see your faces and hear your comments. You can also, if you're uncomfortable talking in this forum, you can use the Q&A box, as I said. You can email me or you can mail comments to my office, and we'll make sure that those get responded to. To look at the soil management plan in depth, you can go to the GeoTracker site, and that's that first bullet right there. You can go to that and then just search for 5901 College. And I think that concludes our presentation. Is that correct, John? Right.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay, so it is time for questions, answers, comments. We have 3 attendees. The one thing I do want to say is that this is being recorded for those of you that might have joined late, and we'll be uploading it to a YouTube site. Additionally, I believe, and I don't know why I didn't say this, but we will be sending out monthly construction reports. So if you're interested in getting that, you can either email me, text me your email, put it in the Q&A box, and we'll make sure that you get that. If you're interested in getting a link to this video, please do the same thing and we'll send you a link and you can share it with others that may want to watch this or parts of it we're unable to attend tonight. So I am going to now open this up for public comment. I'll give people a minute to think about it. And again, I would encourage people, one, if you want to comment, please do, but also if you'd like to get those monthly updates or any other information on the site that we'll be sending out, please do feel free to put your email into the chat box. So we have a comment. Hi, Nikki. Glad somebody said something. Just wanted to say thank you so much for the presentation. This was super insightful and helpful. And a smiley face. Well, thank you, Nikki. We appreciate that.
We do appreciate
We
that.
do. Okay, I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes. And I will remind you that my name and I think my email too will be up on the site. So if you change your mind, you want to call me, feel free. Adam, I'm going to unmute you. And Adam, I'm just going to remind you that you have a little blue button that you have to unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to speak.
Yes,
There you go.
Hmm?
I said, there you go. So
Okay.
please.
I got there kind of late to the meeting, but I was wondering about the parking facilities there. could you remind me what the details of they are? I've heard different things, but I want to get the information more specific.
So Adam, I just want to clarify, are you asking about parking of trucks associated with the project, or are you talking about workers parking,
Not
or?
the parking, the actual parking lot at the end when it's completed. What's the story there? I've heard there's some underground parking and above ground parking. Is that correct?
Well, our meeting tonight is about the environmental conditions, but we do have on Suzanne Brown, who is the development team, and I think she can answer that. And I think there's only 3 people, so I don't think anybody will mind. Hi, Suzanne.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Suzanne Brown. I'm with Equity Community Builders. So the parking lot on Chabot will be open for the retail spaces, for the retail parking. Once we reopen, there's no underground parking. It's all surface lot parking. And then the parking lot that's on Claremont, which is currently gated, will remain gated. So there will only be some public parking for the retail.
And there's and how many stories is this going to be just a single level lot?
Yeah, it's just the surface parking lot like it is now. We're not building a new parking garage or anything like that.
Okay.
We're gonna keep all the buildings that are there. There's some minor demolition on parts of the buildings, but overall, we're basically reusing all the buildings that are currently on campus. And then the surface parking lots that are there will be resurfaced and, restriped, but we're not expanding parking. We're actually reducing the number of spaces that are there now.
Okay, but Adam, no underground parking.
Yeah, no underground parking.
Okay, because I was wondering about that since it is a creek bed there.
Right. Yeah, I think that underground parking is
That's a
not
no-no.
used much. It is. So, okay. Other questions or comments? I'm going to give people just a couple more minutes to think about it.
And if you are on the call and you don't have comments now, but you wonder about it, just reach out to us. We will we'd be happy to talk to you about it and answer any questions that you have.
Okay, I think we don't have any more comments. Again, this will be uploaded to YouTube. And if you'd like to join our mailing list, I'm going to give people a couple minutes and you can type your addresses in the chat box. But I think that's it. So I'd like to say thank you. And Dylan, would you like to close us out, please?
Yeah, appreciate everybody being on the call. And I think it's I think this is at least I feel very confident that this project will go smoothly. And got a good group of people working on it as consultants and developers and the Jewish community, East Bay Jewish Community Campus. So we're looking forward to actually getting this site up kind of back into reuse. So if you have any questions, give us a call. We'll be happy to talk about it.
Please do. And I thank everybody for their time tonight. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Night. Thank you.
Good night.